All right, so Preston, we are back for Watchmen episode 4. If you don't like your story, write your own. The episode opens up with Lady
This
True.
fucking Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's so contrived. It's all political, man.
Who said that?
No, that's my job. Because you keep sending me these links of like people that hate Watchmen, and it's the same shit. And I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah, but how could you hate the show so far? Like, too political? Well, yeah, Watchmen originally was political. Like, I don't understand.
Political. Much more political than this, the original Watchmen comic. But also just, I mean, the title Watchmen itself is very political. Like, Watchmen itself comes from the JFK speech that he would have given if he wasn't assassinated, and about how we need to be like stewards of the world and work together and all of this kind of stuff. But I just think it's hilarious though to be like, man, these freaking liberals with Raiders of the Lost Ark, like, why does it gotta be so political? Oh man.
I just don't understand like how you can bitch about a Watchmen being political when the original comic was political. That's like complaining that Game of Thrones has too much like fucking medieval set. Well, yeah, it takes place in like
Game of Thrones with all the fucking dragons, man. Why?
Well, it's a fucking fantasy.
Dragons?
Like,
fucking
fuck?
Liberals and their dragons, man.
Oh man.
God.
But
okay.
But the episode opens up with Lady True. She comes out of nowhere and she buys some land from an Oklahoma couple, and that was very insane and a great way to introduce this character. She's very calculating and she's very
yes.
I don't know. It was very creepy, but I liked it.
The way they set that up, so that's very Lindelof. Like, there's a lot of episodes of The Leftovers that kind of begin with like music like that, where you're introducing characters, and then something kind of like hits it all from the side. Yeah, it was super interesting. I mean, obviously eggs are.
I was about to say that. Like, what the hell's with the eggs?
I'm not sure what it means. I guess it means that, like, if I were to guess based on like various interviews that Lindelof has been talking about and the theme of Angela and like family, that eggs represent legacy, that everything, like, nothing ever ends, right? This is like the Dr. Manhattan line at the end. Like, Ozymandias at the end of Watchmen asks Dr. Manhattan, did I do the right thing in the end? And Dr. Manhattan says, nothing ever ends. And it's true, nothing ever ends. Like, everybody has a legacy, everybody has ancestors. Everything, I mean, even if you're sterile, the things you do on this earth affect what will happen later. Mm-hmm. So everybody has a legacy. And so that's like part of this. So I think that all the events in Watchmen are still occurring and cascading through history. And I think that's what the egg might mean. That, you know, the chicken produced it, it's going to make another chicken.
Mm-hmm. And she buys the farmland because something crashes there from outer space. Now, this might have something to do with Dr. Manhattan. Lady True, I don't know, does she want to somehow harness his power? Like, she seems like she's up to something, I don't want to say nefarious, but they have like, there's way too much mystery going on, and it's kind of annoying me, but at the same time, it's really keeping me coming back. Like,
it's pretty amazing that they introduced this major character out of nowhere in episode 4. Mm-hmm. Like, the season is almost halfway done. Like, so episode 5 is halfway.
Right.
But nonetheless, we're 4/9 the way there, and they introduce a whole new character who, so you remember in the last podcast where
the point of view
talking about, yeah, where the car dropped from the sky, and I was like, well, we don't know if it's an owl ship or if it's Dr. Manhattan. Mm-hmm. But those are the two choices. It turns out I was wrong. It was Lady True.
Right.
It was not an owl ship or Dr. Manhattan. Lady True is the one that picked up the car and dropped it.
But here's the thing, though. It's like what we said about, like, with Lord of the Rings. Whenever, like, Tolkien understood that when you answer something, it loses its mystery. But he also, you know, asks another. There's also another question that comes out, and there's a new mystery coming in. And so the mystery of who dropped the car in front of Laurie Blake, that's answered. But then another mystery is there entirely. Like, what does Will have to do with Lady True? Like, what?
And why would she drop that car there? And what was she doing? Right. Yeah, no, it's baffling. Everything is quite baffling. Lady True's entire situation is baffling. Like we have all these. I was sitting there talking with my wife. It's like Lady True's daughter. Is she a clone of Lady True? Like is she giving her? She seems to be giving her memories of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But Lady True would be too young to be in the Vietnam War, unless Lady True is also a clone of maybe the first Lady True, who's creating clones and passing her memories down.
Jesus.
All these crazy ideas started popping in our head.
That actually would make sense. Like somewhat like legacy is being passed on and on and on and on, like through the memories and all that stuff. So in a sense, you're almost living forever.
Yeah. Now this first scene, it's clearly there's some Superman parallels. Being on this farm and something falling from the sky and an infertile couple, and what's funny is that like imagine rather than Clark Kent's parents finding Superman, some corporate person goes in and like takes Superman first. Like are we supposed to think that something is being stolen from these parents? They receive a baby instead of this item, and that's what the Kent parents wanted, right? They always wanted a baby, and then a baby falls. But we don't know what fell. Could be anything.
So Lady True does that with the whole farmland, and she's introduced. And I was thinking about the entire time. You made a great point with this. In the first episode, who was the point of view character? Because episode 2, I believe, was Angela, and episode 3 was Laurie Blake. Who was the point of view character for the first episode? Was it Judd?
Yeah, I would say Judd.
Right, and then
Judd, and then I think we must be back to Angela. I think in episode 4. Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be Lady True.
Judd, Angela, and then
Laurie Blake.
Laurie Blake, yeah.
So Angela continues learning about her heritage, and she hears the car crash outside and meets Laurie again, and she finds the pill bottle inside. Later, Angela leaves the pill bottle and Judd's KKK outfit with Looking Glass. Now, here's the thing. I thought he and Judd were like in this like secret conspiracy underground white supremacist movement. But I'm surprised Angela trusts Looking Glass that much. Like, I thought he was like a secret bad guy, like the secret right hand of the bad guy.
Well, I think we're playing with expectations, right? Like Looking Glass. I mean, we know from the previews that the next episode is going to be a Looking Glass focused episode, that he's going to be the main character. But I think because of the accent and everything, we assume that Looking Glass is this straight up redneck, and we assume that he's going to be a straight up racist. And so it's a bit of a twist that no, Looking Glass, the redneck white guy, is actually not racist at all. That it's Judd or other people. We still don't know what's going on with Judd, but yeah, I think that's part of it. That Looking Glass is actually a good person. If there's one person, if you're playing stereotypes that you'd think would be a raging racist, it would be Looking Glass, but he's not.
But he's definitely into the whole conspiracy thing that the U.S. government is raining squids down on us.
Yeah, but it sounds like the U.S. government is raining squids down on us.
He's trying to figure out the truth and all that stuff. It was no alien invasion. Could it be a secret Rorschach supporter or maybe a Rorschach sympathizer?
I doubt it. I mean, Rorschach is just a piece of shit. I mean, we forget that. So, oh God, maybe allow me a tangent for a second on Watchmen. So I've been watching a lot of things, people review Watchmen, and this is what I hate, is that everyone is pretending that they were a Watchmen fan and a Watchmen comic fan, and that they read Watchmen comic back in the day, and it was so revolutionary for them. And I just got to call bullshit. Like, okay, I remember when Watchmen comic came out. I know what it was like. I was a kid, and there were other dark comics that came out around the same time, Dark Knight Returns, for example. And those were considered like really exciting because it's about characters that you know. But I was told about Watchmen as a kid, and I read it back then, even though it was DC and I was a Marvel kid. And that's a big deal. Like when you're a comic fan, like back in the day, like there were people that read Marvel and there were people that read DC. So it was very rare to pick up a DC book. So I read Watchmen, and as a comic fan, as a kid, I thought it was boring as fucking hell. I didn't get it. It was boring. I was expecting excitement and superheroes fighting each other and superhero teams and things like that. And it didn't have any of that. And so when people are like, oh my God, it blew my mind. It's like, like, who are you? Like, are you in your 50s and you like read Watchmen when you were in your 20s and you got it? And you were politically aligned with everything that, Alan Moore, believes and things like that, and understood all the subtext and because Watchmen is this crazy deconstruction of Rorschach. I mean, that's like a huge part of the book that it's framed by this right-wing crazy nut and accusing people, saying if you're into superheroes must be like right-wing crazy nuts because they don't believe in the system, And left-wing people would be like, oh, we need government programs to keep the system going, and I believe in government and blah 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 blah. You'd have to be this crazy libertarian right-wing nut who believes that he should be a vigilante going out there, and it's a takedown of superheroes, and the entire middle part is Rorschach getting psychoanalyzed. Like, what type of person becomes a crazy right-wing nut? Oh, people that that society never treated well, that have no investment in society. Because Rorschach, he was abused when he was young. Everyone treated him like shit. He doesn't have any friends. That's why he doesn't believe in society, and that's why he becomes this right-wing nut vigilante and all of this stuff. And he believes that all of society should be destroyed and is sinful and has really weird issues with sex and all this. And if you got that as like a kid reading Watchmen in the 80s, like, man, I bow my head to you because I certainly didn't when I read it,
Well,
and so
to kind of defend those people, actually, go ahead, finish it, because
I'm just saying there's so much revisionism now, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, Watchmen was the first comic that was dark. What? No, it fucking wasn't. It came out in '87. Like, they were doing dark shit all through the '80s. They were doing dark shit in the '50s. Like, nothing. Like, there's so much revisionism.
Wasn't the Ninja Turtles comic originally super dark?
Oh, Ninja Turtles was insanely dark.
Wasn't that came out years before Watchmen?
I want to say, I'm not sure when it came out. Let me look that up real quick.
Preston, I love you. You always want to look everything up.
I do, because I'm curious.
You always want to put the podcast on hold and...
You're right. Ninja Turtles came out in '84.
Right. So, no, you're right. There were a lot of dark shit before. But here's the thing. Here's why I kind of sympathize with these people who obviously have to pretend they know a thing or two. And we just finished the Mandalorian podcast, and I brought in Thrones. So I'm going to bring in Thrones a little bit again. It's like with Game of Thrones. When you start a Game of Thrones YouTube channel, you're not allowed to say, I never read the books. Because there's a Game of Thrones YouTuber who's incredibly popular. In fact, are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Here. I was told by someone very close to this fucking guy that he had never read the books. In fact, he still hasn't read any of them. He's only watched the show. But everybody thinks he's read the books because, he goes around taking people's theories and so on and so forth. You're not allowed to, not be a big fan of something if you're going to cover it. You're not allowed to do that. You're supposed to, if you're going to talk about something, you best know everything about this fucking topic. You best know Jon Snow's shoe size. You best know Cersei's cup size. You better know fucking when Jaime Lannister brushed his teeth and wiped his ass. Otherwise, fuck you. And that's essentially it. That's the problem here, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
But it's weird though. I mean, because I also getting back to what I was laughing at in the beginning. I hear other people reviewers being like, "Oh, I love the Watchmen comic, but this series is too political." And I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck are you fucking talking about?"
I sent it to. By the way, that video I sent to, I didn't even watch it. What was his main? What was that YouTuber's main gripes with it?
Oh, he was claiming it was contrived and that it was preaching and typical stuff. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just kind of like passed through different parts. There was one part where he was complaining about the beginning where the police officer pulls over the guy and they're like, he had no reason to pull him over. And I was like, that was the whole fucking point. Like, that was the whole point. Is that that was a black police officer pulling over a white guy for no reason. Like, that was the point.
A part of me loves sending you shit like this because you get so heated, and I love listening to you get heated. So it's my fault too.
Because when you talk to me, you're like, oh, Preston's so calm. He's such a calm old man, like, you know. And then you're like try to rile me up and like pull out the angry young guy in me. But man,
you're not old. Stop it. Stop calling yourself old. Jesus Christ. And we have like fans in like their 60s and 70s who really get fucking pissed in the comment section and goes, "You're old, please." Of course.
No. And that's what's the fun thing about and this is actually why comics went dark to begin with, is they found that they weren't really pulling in new readers. Mm-hmm. But they'd maintained their old readers. And so they wanted the comics to grow with the readers rather than, you know, being children's stories. Mm-hmm.
So we have a new superhero in town, Lube Man. Angela's like getting rid of the fucking Angela's.
And they never explained it. They never explained it at all. He was never brought up again.
Angela's getting rid of the Will's wheelchair, and then Lube Man is like watching her, and she goes, "Hey, wait!" And she runs after him, and
that was a great scene.
Lube on him.
He just disappears into that. Oh, that was really clever. Because like, how do you get away from the police?
Lube Man. I love Lube Man.
Slide into the sewers.
I would love it if that's like Lady True's, like those are her henchmen, you know, Lube Men. You can't beat him up because he just punches go through.
What was he doing? Was he just taking pictures? We have no idea who Lube Man is.
I guess he was just scouting out what she was doing. I would love it if that was Petey. I thought it was Petey at first, you know, because he wants to be a superhero, kind of, and he has like no real basis to go off of, so he just...
That would be something.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, a lot of people have been telling us that the HBO has their own like Pedia encyclopedia thing where...
Yeah. No, yeah, there's supposedly all sorts of supplemental material that I can like look up and stuff, but at the same time, I find it very fascinating to watch and not fully grasping everything. Mm-hmm. You know, keeps you interested.
Laurie found Will's footprints in Angela's car, and therefore they kind of team up. And there's a connection to the Truth facility at the Millennium Clock, which I guess all it does is tell time.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're talking about True's clock in like the huge tower.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to do something.
I want to assume it's a time machine. Maybe it could be a time machine. Maybe that's a little too contrived. Maybe, but
Well, now we're getting into like what is Lady True's motivation and what does she want to do? Mm-hmm. You know. So what Lady True's situation is kind of sensitive to talk about. So Lady True is, of course, Vietnamese, but Vietnam is now an American state. Mm-hmm. And Angela is also from Vietnam, but she's, you know, a black American woman growing up in Vietnam versus Vietnamese American person growing up in Vietnam. I mean, I add America, with quotes because this is clearly a parallel to Hawaii. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have not, unfortunately.
Hawaii is interesting because you have native Hawaiians who have their Hawaiian culture, but then there's, you know, all the other Americans that are there, white people, black people, Asian people, who on some level, local Hawaiians, they respect and appreciate Hawaiian culture, and on some levels they assimilate and have taken on like certain Hawaiian traits. Maybe one day they want to wear a Hawaiian shirt, or they learn the Hawaiian language. And if you ask them, they'll say, well, I'm Hawaiian. I'm from Hawaii. I was born in Hawaii. My parents were born in Hawaii. And Angela, but at the same time, it's kind of weird. And it would be very weird to a Hawaiian, right, to have this person there and be like, oh, you think you're from here because I think I'm from here. And that conflict of ethnicity and nationalism and all these different things that are hard to describe. We kind of have a feeling, but we don't really know what these things mean, and anthropologists write dissertations about it. So the Angela Lady True dynamic is supposed to mirror Hawaii, because Angela is born in Vietnam. She occasionally wears Vietnamese dresses. She speaks Vietnamese. She likes Vietnamese food. Mm-hmm. She's from Vietnam, but she's American. She's not Vietnamese in the same way that Lady True is Vietnamese. Just like if you move to Hawaii and you live there a long time, you might feel Hawaiian, but you're not Hawaiian in the same way that a native Hawaiian is Hawaiian. Right. And there's some statements being made there about culture and how we feel about culture and I'm not sure what the statements are being made, like what the end statement is of what humans should do. Mm-hmm. But I can understand those feelings. The feelings are weird about what it means to be from somewhere and what it means to be, because clearly Oklahoma is also that too, right? All these people feel like they're Oklahoman, but Oklahoma was American Indian territory that was, stripped and taken from an area, or they were talking about as well that after the Tulsa riots, a lot of black people fled Oklahoma, and now a lot of Oklahoma, they're moving back to take advantage of the reparations. Right. And a lot of people don't feel they're from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be from Oklahoma? And this guy gets, I'm sure it's modern today. What does it mean to be American? I don't know. Doesn't mean anything, really.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm an immigrant, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's a feeling, it's an imagined, these get into my beliefs, but culture for the most part is an imagined state. There are differences to people, but when you place identity on those differences, that's when you have culture. So for instance, there's people that like broccoli, and there's people that don't like broccoli. But there's no broccoli eating parts of town, and there's no versus not broccoli eating parts of town. While, say, your sexual preference, there are parts of town where people with certain sexual preferences move. Or there are green-eyed people, and there are blue-eyed people, and there are brown-eyed people. But there's no areas of town with different eye color. But there's different areas of town for people with different skin color, certainly. So, and identity is not just self-identity, it's what other people do. I had a very good friend who is half white, half black, and I asked him, hey, what do you identify as? And he says, I don't identify as anything, but everybody else treats me black. It's like, okay, good point. So identity is a two-way street, I get, but so it's imagined, it's everybody imagining something that's not really there. Mm-hmm. If everybody stopped but that's never going to happen.
Your fellow liberals might not like that idea, because I always see certain people always yelling at if a white guy is wearing dreadlocks. That's my culture. What are you doing? You're appropriating my culture.
See, and this is probably where, Lindelof and I would disagree on things. I think cultural appropriation is an interesting topic to talk about, but I don't think cultural appropriation is something, I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually think a cultural appropriation is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. But is it even a culture? But isn't even appropriation though? Just because you want to wear a kimono or put your hair in dreadlocks, I mean, come on! Why are you gonna bitch about people doing that?
Well, that's what I say. When you ask that kid that put his hair in those dreadlocks, how does he feel about the black community? I bet you a dime to a dollar that he feels better about the black community than a white person that doesn't put their head in dreadlocks. All things being equal, he's probably like he's trying to feel sympathy and connection to an other, and he's trying to bridge something, you know. And granted, some people look at him and go, "Oh, he's trying to look cool or whatever." Well, it doesn't matter. He's trying to make that bridge. And you know, if you alienate people and say, "No, you're not allowed. You got to stay in your lanes." You know, white people have to act like white people, black people have to act like black people. Like, that's just ridiculous. The alternative, the opposite of cultural appropriation is horrible. So, so even if cultural appropriation, like sometimes, you know, someone could laugh at the white guy with dreadlocks, or maybe it feels icky. The opposite of cultural appropriation is horrific. So you know, but there's definitely comments, like Lindelof is definitely making a comment with Angela appropriating Vietnamese culture, but not really being Vietnamese, while Lady True is really Vietnamese. Just like white people move to Hawaii and appropriate Hawaiian culture, but, you know.
Well, with Lady True, we find out that she and Will are apparently allies, and he could walk the entire time. I even sent you a message and I'm like, oh, he can walk. I sent you a message on Facebook. What the hell? He could walk the entire time? Because at first I was...
Which means he could completely hang Judd if he wanted to.
Someone was telling me in your comments section how... I forgot the guy's name. I do apologize. But they were telling me how Will drank the coffee, like, as soon as it was done, like, it's scalding hot. So...
Yeah. Well, I feel like he's like getting enhanced. Like Lady True is like physically enhanced.
You think so?
Well, so now so we know clones exist in the universe. At least Ozymandias had clones, and now this crossovers into Ozymandias' plot. Like Ozymandias' plot, like, which is ridiculous.
Oh
like,
my God, it's one of the most ridiculous things I've seen this entire year in television. Holy shit. He's fishing for fetuses in a lake?
Right. Somebody I read a review that's like, wow, Jeremy Irons, like, Shakespearean trained actor, is sitting in a boat tossing fetuses back into a pond.
Like, what the fuck? I thought this was a prison of his own making, but we'll get into this. Like, what kind of fucking prison is this? I almost don't even think it's at first I thought it was like he's stuck in a virtual reality thing, but I don't think that's what it is. Like, he's plugged into a machine, but I think this is an actual thing.
And now we're finding out that this is Westworld. Like, he's on a different timeline.
You think so?
Well, he's now talked about how those cakes with the candles, you know, there's one candle and then there's two candles, and I wasn't sure what the candles represented. They represent anniversaries, you know, and so in the last one, he's got a 4 candle, and he mentioned that he'd been there 4 years, and it's like, oh, so whatever's happening with Ozymandias, like, it's gonna, it's before the other plot, and I imagine that whatever happens, that Ozymandias' plot is probably going to end where Watchmen begins.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, he might be the one coming down.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I was getting the impression that maybe Lady True, with her technology and whatnot, she was the one that put him in that prison, or she was that one that kind of kept him.
They keep showing the moon when they show his prison, you know? Like, and so it's like, is he imprisoned on the moon? And is he trying to get back from the moon?
Wow, that's a good catch. So he was fishing for fetuses in the lake, and he put them in the machine, and so on and so forth, and he brings them back to the palace, and we see that he killed all the other Crookshankses and Mr. Phillips. And I'm assuming the reason he did was because when we last left him off, he was putting on his gear to go take on his adversary, the game warden. I'm assuming the reason he killed those clones was because I guess he was warming himself up. I'm assuming. There was no reason for him to kill all of them because they're obviously not a threat to him unless they have a weird code in their brain that all of them will attempt to stop him if he leaves. So, because I think the game warden is just another Mr. Phillips. I don't think that's another character. I think that everybody in that prison that he's in, they're all Mr. Phillipses. And
I imagine that they grow in that pond to replace, you know, everything. Why they need him to, like, pull them out himself to accelerate the process. I don't know.
Maybe because I'm thinking he's the one who built this own prison just to keep himself in there. But maybe over time he's either gotten crazy or gotten some idea on how to fix everything, and he wants to go back. But the contract he made with himself and these clones from years ago when he first got there, he has to somehow find a way out of a prison of his own making. And that's what the game warden is doing. And I'm assuming he was just maybe testing himself or training himself to see how good his skills are now that he's older.
So I'll tell you about one thing that I couldn't stop thinking about when they showed Ozymandias' statue. And I kept thinking, because she says, so there's this weird scene where Laurie says, why do you have a statue of Ozymandias? He looks horrible. And
so
then
old.
Lady True's like, oh, the elderly are revered in my culture and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, this is America. And of course there's a statement about, well, Vietnam is supposed to be part of America. But at the same time, in Vietnam, no, statues don't look like that, okay? They do idealized pictures and statues of people too. So she was pulling that out of her ass. I don't know any culture on earth that does, realistic sculptures. But I kept thinking, like, maybe that's actually really Ozymandias, that he was bronzed or something, that she took his actual body and, like, covered it in bronze.
As a trophy?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's what I was wondering. That she gets his body, that's whatever, his story is going to end with him dying and her bronzing his body.
Oh God, I hope not.
That's what I could...
His story is so fucking, like, this whole, like, fetus thing, like, oh my fucking God. Somehow, the Mr. Phillipses and Miss Crookshankses, they've kind of grown on me, despite them being, like, just very, like, they've kind of grown on me a little bit. Like, they're charming in a sense. I don't know why, but his story is the most fascinating right now. I care about that the most. Like, next to Dr. Manhattan coming back.
The watches and his plan with the watches.
Right.
Because he has that plan with the watches in year 2, and then all of a sudden he's, like, upset, and now it's year 4. And he's upset about being in this prison. So I don't know.
Well, something's going... That is the most interesting for me. That for right now, like, that and the possibility of Dr. Manhattan being someone in the cast, or maybe coming down from Mars, or maybe sending a part of himself as a child, maybe, because you said the Superman thing, to Earth. Maybe that's what Lady True was trying to get, since we're all talking about legacy here. And I don't know. That's the most fascinating thing. That's one of the most fascinating scenes I've seen in television this entire year. Him fishing the fetuses out of that lake. My God, that is just so... Holy shit. This show is really stepping it up.
Well, I feel like with that kind of science, it's got to be either his own science or Lady True's science, right? And so if Lady True is doing all this genetic engineering, she's able to make Will strong, that maybe she built that world for Ozymandias.
Right, that's what I was thinking, because of the, like, when she was saying, like, on her deathbed, my mother made me promise never to leave Vietnam, so I brought Vietnam with me. So maybe she did build that world. Maybe
she can create all those environments.
Maybe that was their agreement. He would give her the company and all that stuff and all the advancements he's made, and he would be in somewhat of a paradise. Because I remember him saying at first he thought it was a paradise, and then it became a prison. Was that it?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Maybe he's finally realizing it's not a paradise. It's actually a prison, and he's trying to find a way out. But I like that the idea that he might be on the moon. Ooh, that's interesting.
I was also reminded, so there's this thought experience philosophically. Like, if there was a machine that you could go into, and it would be paradise, it would be heaven, and you would live forever, would you go into that box?
Who's there with me?
And, well, I mean, I think it's just you, but it's paradise in there. I mean, I imagine there's, like, fake people to make you happy. You'd be happy all the time, and you'd be in this paradise, but you'd live forever, would you do it? And which is an odd thing, like, because they're offering you, it's essentially offering heaven, right? And there's something creepy about it. It's like, there's something hesitant about, like, wait, I'm living forever? Like, and so I kept, thinking about that with Ozymandias. Like, maybe he wanted to live forever, and she's like, I can create an environment for you to live forever in. And then he gets in it, and he's like, oh God, this is hell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. I forget when Lady True's company started. She said maybe like 7 years ago or something. And so it's like, well, does that mean in episode 7, like Ozymandias is going to escape, and the timelines will catch up? I don't know.
You really have to pay attention. Like if they blindside you like this, you have no one to blame but yourself, because you really have to pay attention to stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it didn't seem like so much time was passing between the events, because you're like, what? Because they're talking about preparing for the play, and then in the next one they're putting on the play, and you're like, and so I thought that was like a week later, but it's actually a year later, because he's got a freaking second anniversary cake. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, and he's got this conflict with the game warden, but now a year later has passed, so nothing happened with the game warden in that year.
Huh.
The game warden warned him, and nothing happened.
That's why I was thinking. Like, he was training himself to, like, killing all the Phillips and Crookshanks because like, he wants to prepare for his eventual face-off with the game warden. So like I said, his story is the most intriguing, and I'm gonna and they're probably gonna kill him off towards the end of the season, because that's Jeremy Irons. You gotta pay out the ass for Jeremy Irons. Like, he's a
it's like Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So and they really kept Anthony Hopkins' role down for the second season. So I really hope we go into season 2 with Watchmen with Jeremy Irons, but it's really interesting. I really like this part. It really overshadows everything else.
I mean, it seems like they could have filmed Jeremy Irons scenes like in a week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We could, get him for a week.
And before we close out the podcast, the Will and Lady True's conversation, something's supposed to happen in 3 days.
Yeah.
So, and which is fitting, because we have 5 episodes left, and anything can happen in those 3 days. And I don't know, like, and he starts to say tick tock, which is what the 7th Cavalry was saying. Right. So something's going on. Does
Ozymandias ever say tick tock when he's talking about his plan coming through? Of course, he says that in year 2.
Did he say tick? Well, everything is a clock motif, so.
Yeah.
God, Jesus, it's getting a little intense. I'm starting. It's slowly building, and someone was telling me earlier today, like, how they were watching the first episode and they didn't understand it and they didn't really like it that much. I'm like, oh, God damn it, you just continue on. It gets so it's not that the show is amazing. It's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it is intriguing, so much so that you just want to that next episode. Maybe that next episode will finally answer enough.
We're peeling the layers of the onion, and it's just onion all the way down.
Right.
It's
right. By the way, I forgot to tell you this. So I hate saying stuff like this. I hate giving the crap like this, dumbasses like this, any attention. But so someone was theorizing on our Game of Thrones podcast official YouTube page, whatever, saying that me and you are being paid by HBO to test out, like, HBO's, like, new initiative, which is podcasting. And I'm like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, what the fuck are you talking? Me and Preston are being paid by shit. And then I looked, and HBO has their own Watchmen podcast. They do. What the fuck? Like, HBO has their own Watchmen podcast? What?
Yeah. No, I listened to it.
But here's the thing, though. Here's why I don't care about it. No, I'm not trying to knock on HBO, but the reason why I don't care about HBO's own, like, Watchmen podcast is because these guys are paid by fucking HBO, so they probably have seen all the episodes. And I can say this now because it's been several years since then. So my boyfriend Nick Hodges of History Buffs When he
Yes.
did his video on Vikings, the actual crew of Vikings, the people behind the whole scenes, invited him out there, History Channel, to see the whole thing. What they also did for
Wow.
Nick was they also gave him the entire season to watch. And the season wasn't even over. It wasn't even halfway done. Like, the season just started, and they gave him all the episodes to just binge. So,
Wow.
and he did like several interviews, and I think he did his own little podcast with Vikings. And the fucking show wasn't even over. So why would I want to watch the official Watchmen podcast from HBO when these guys are paid by HBO and have probably seen the entire show? It seems a little shallow.
Well, unlike with sexy Nick Hodges, on the podcast, the guy had watched the first 3 episodes, and he was interviewing Lindelof, who is trying very hard not to give away anything.
Right.
So unlike us, where we're like speculating and like, oh, what spoilers have you heard, and what do you think's going to happen? There was none of that.
Right.
It was like, what do you talk about? Well, it's like they talked about like general themes of the story and like on a kind of abstract level and his history with Watchmen and stuff like that. So, it was fine. I mean, when you have Lindelof as a guest, it's going to be great. It's going to be interesting because it's the creator.
But at the same time, like, you almost don't want to have I almost wouldn't want to have him on, because what are we really going to ask him? Because I don't want to be spoiled. I want to go like into the next episode with everybody else. Like,
well, I mean, it's exactly like the interviews with. Well, I would actually say Lindelof was more revealing than say George R. R. Martin is in interviews, where George R. R. Martin just says absolutely nothing. Every time he's interviewed. But every time he's interviewed, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this new George R. R. Martin interview. And then they watch it and it's just nothing. At the 2-hour, 10 minutes point, he said that Dani will be having a twist in her story. What can we read into that?
Oh man, I'm not trying to knock on the HBO thing. They're not really competition to us, because we already have our own guys who like watching our podcast. But like, I don't know. I would want to watch the HBO official Watchmen podcast, but at the same time, not really, because these guys are paid by HBO and they've probably seen the entire. In fact, I would put money that they've seen the entire season already, and it's just not fun watching with people who know what's gonna happen. It's like what you.
Do you remember like back, maybe it was episode like season 4 or 5 of Game of Thrones? There was a show called After the Throne.
Yes.
Or After the.
I know what you're talking about.
That was, yeah. I watched like 5 minutes of it once, but it was tough because it was 2 guys who were watching the show, and they couldn't say anything negative,
right?
Because they were hired by HBO.
Yeah.
So they would be, but they were both like clearly like art critics, and so they were bringing up other books and other themes and how this paralleled some other book, and it wasn't that interesting because they weren't speculating on the next episode. They weren't trashing it or giving accolades of what they liked.
Exactly.
They were really hindered when you're paid by the people. You're really hindered.
Well, HBO did that because Talking Dead was so popular. The Walking Dead after show, Talking Dead, that was so like really popular, I guess. But at the same time, it's like Talking Dead was popular because every time like a character would die on The Walking Dead, they would appear on Talking Dead, and the audience could like get the last word from the actors and so on that just died. And but at the same time, the host, Chris Hardwick, I think, hard something. He was a good host. Those 2 guys were just So, I just wanted to address that. What would you give this episode? I want to give it a higher score than a 7. I want to give it a 7.5. It was good. It was good, but it's just, once again, I want to give it a.
It was good. I think it was a little more scattered than the previous
Yes.
ones. I think the Jeremy Irons story all of a sudden kicked into being the most interesting part.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't think it's as strong as episode 1 to 3, but it's pretty good.
I think it's stronger than episode 2.
Yeah, I think it's stronger than episode
So what would
2.
you give it? A 7?
Yeah, I'd give it a 7.
I want to give it a 7.5 at least, because it's not like episode 3, like, but it's like, it's still I really liked it. I liked it. The Jeremy Irons story really has me hyped up. I remember when Game of Thrones season 1 first came out, and there was this thing that HBO did that if you signed up for like some kind of program, like you could watch the next episode of Thrones right away. I think I think that was a thing. I don't know. Maybe someone in the comment section can remind me. I wish they kind of did that for Watchmen. Like, if you signed up for HBO Go, you could watch the next episode immediately, you know? So, but no, so far, Watchmen has not disappointed. There's a lot of mysteries, and they kind of answer them slowly.
I like it. You're getting more and more excited every episode.
Yes, it's really intriguing. I really missed the hype when Westworld Season 1 came out, because it's like you said, like, you know, people were theorizing together. Everybody was like on Twitter theorizing together, getting hype for it, you know, and I missed that train. I missed Westworld Season 1 train. And I'm kind of on it right now for Watchmen Season 1, so hopefully they continue on. All right, so Preston, let's discuss episode 5 of Watchmen, and I gotta say, off the bat, my favorite episode so far. It
was great. A lot of people like Lindelof fans noted that it was a very leftovers type of episode because they focused on one character that was completely different from the previous characters that we've been focusing on, and kind of went into their past trauma and their past life. And while exploring that, like the rest of the plot moved forward a little bit. And that's kind of how The Leftovers is. And I think there's some episodes of Lost that are like that as well. So it definitely had that feel of a character, dealing with, The Leftovers is all about past trauma. And this was, him dealing with this past trauma. But man, the way it was presented and everything, it was great. I mean, a little bit of backstory, a little bit of advancing the plot, a little bit of character development, like, It really, I think it was the strongest episode so far. I think the first episode was really good, and this one was really, really strong. Yeah.
I would say I want to give it like a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Amazing episode. I loved every minute of it. And it's funny you say that, because just like you said several times before, this is they're doing what the Game of Thrones books do, where they, like, every episode it's like it focuses on one character's point of view. You know, like the first episode was Judd, I guess, kinda, and then the second episode is Angela, third is Lori, fourth is Angela again, and then the fifth is Wade. And Wade, I kind of disregarded Wade in the last episode, if you remember. I said, like, I thought Wade was with Judd when he was a secret KKK member or secret, whatever member.
Right.
And you kind of shot me down a little bit. You're like, well, you probably think that because of the accent and, he's from Oklahoma, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's probably why I thought that. But no, Wade's a stand-up guy going through his own shit. And this was a secondary character I really didn't give too much thought about. And this episode really made me like him a lot.
Well, it's so funny because he plays himself so confident earlier. Like, he's one of those, he had this whole, like, confident good old boy, like, attitude towards everybody, and then you get to know his story and you're like, oh crap, he's been through some shit, and he is the farthest thing from confident. Like the fact that they go down to that bunker and all of a sudden you realize that the bunker is because he's so filled with fear and so scared, and you're like, oh gosh, like, this is a broken man. But when I saw him before, he seems so matter of fact, like, I've got everything together. And in fact, he's the exact opposite. It was great.
So let's get into that, because that's actually something I wanted to talk about. So the episode opens up with him. Apparently he's on a religious mission because, back in 1985, everybody thought, like, tonight was the night where Russians launched the nukes in the U.S. and everybody was going to be destroyed. So I guess that's kind of an act of, like, trying to get into heaven. They were trying to, like, save a few people's souls, I guess. And,
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he's a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, really?
So he was giving out the Watchtower. Watchtower is the informational conversion literature for the Jehovah's Witnesses.
I actually did not know that. I actually did not know that. I've never encountered one of those guys.
Yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses they're an interesting group. They go in America. I'm sure other countries too, but they knock door to door in pairs, a little bit like the Mormons. But they believe that 144,000 people are going to be saved. And
only 144,000?
Only 144,000. Though I think the rest of everybody else might get a lesser heaven. I'm not sure exactly.
Oh, wait, why only 144,000?
There's a line in Revelation about that number. being chosen by God. And most other religions are like, well, yeah, in heaven they're like leaders or elite, but it doesn't mean only 144,000 get to go to heaven. But Jehovah's Witnesses believe that 144, like that number, goes on. And yeah, I mean, it's funny, but whatever. I mean, I don't believe any of this, but of course, somebody out there is a Jehovah's Witness and they believe 144,000, and that's what they believe, because there is in Revelation some numbers about that. Yeah.
I never knew that. It's
something
not that
like,
I never
it's
cared.
something like
just
12,000 for the 12 tribes. It's some math number like that, which is why it's 144,000 or something. But
well, he's trying to save a few souls, and some of the punk guys and this one punk girl fucks him over, and just in time too. She leads him into
those aren't just any punks. Those are the top knots.
Top knots.
They're in the original Watchmen comic. They are the gang that killed Night Owl 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Though, I mean, it's a big gang, so it's not like those individuals did it. But yeah, they're the same group of people that killed the first Night Owl. Not the Night Owl that we know from Watchmen. He's Night Owl 2, but the original Night Owl is killed by the Top Knots.
Interesting. Well, the Top Knots lead him into that fun house, and she takes his clothes, and then she runs out. And as she runs out, and he's there alone, the squid fall happens. Now, I gotta say, the one thing I never understood is how, because they say they said it multiple times, it killed 3 million people. Okay, fine. How the hell can a giant squid falling on top of people kill 3 million people? That's what I never really understood until I came to because they're in Hoboken at the very start of this, in New Jersey. And, New York City is not that far off. And then the squid fall happens, and yet people in Hoboken die. And I'm like, why? Apparently there's a psychic shockwave released from the squid when it falls down? I didn't know that.
He's not just any squid, he's a psychic squid. So
what?
When people say that the only supernatural element of Watchmen is Dr. Manhattan, it's not completely true, because there is a psychic, a random psychic person who dies and whose brain is stolen and saved by Ozymandias. And then through genetic testing and genetic engineering, he takes the psychic's brain and crosses it with a squid and creates this giant psychic squid that's going to blast out various apocalyptic artists' music and artwork. And so it's not just that 3 million die, but there was a shockwave of other people that survived would have nightmares for the rest of their lives. And they would tell the story.
I looked it up, and it's essentially like something about an infant crawling out of, like, chewing its way out of its mother's womb or something like that, like horrific visionary.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a composer who commits suicide for, who's super depressed, like their music. It's this, kind of nihilistic stuff. I mean, it's these. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head the names of the 3 artists that Ozymandias puts in. One of them's an Indian woman, and one, and a couple others. The point is they're super depressing, scarring revolutionary artists who with disturbing music and visuals. And the squid would infect all of these people that aren't killed with these kind of ideas. And so it doesn't, Looking Glass, though, doesn't seem to have that, though. He just seems to be really scared from everybody dying. But it's also interesting is there's the question so far, and they haven't really been clear on it, is Looking Glass a psychic?
Yeah, because apparently his other day job is essentially telling whether or not people can be honest, or like he can tell if people are lying or not. And
right, but that can also be an acquired skill of just somebody that can read faces, right? Like so we aren't quite sure if he's a psychic or not. Now, what's interesting is that in the original comic, when Ozymandias talks about the squid fall, he actually says that the residual people that are going to be affected are people that have slight psychic ability. He said like sensitives is what I think he says in the comic book. And so, I don't know if Looking Glass is a psychic or sensitive, and the squid affects and enhances his ability, because he has the ability to know when people lie currently. But this is a big thing. He couldn't tell if the top knot was lying. Right? She tricked him, right? So at least, it might be that his psychic abilities weren't developed at that point, or
maybe the psychic shock wave kind of like triggered it to awaken.
Yeah. But that's a significant thing, that he can tell when people are lying currently, but he couldn't tell when the top knot girl was lying. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of it. Such a well done backstory on everything.
It really is, for a character I gave no fucks about. I think this is my favorite character now in the entire show. I really do. I love Adrian Veidt, but I think I love his story more than I love the character. I love the character of Wade. This is a guy that I completely wrote off the first 4 episodes, and now I'm so invested in his story alongside Adrian Veidt, which we'll get to. But there's one part in the episode where he and that woman are having a drink, and she goes, "You better call someone to come pick you up. You're drunk. You better call a friend." And he says, "I have no friends." That is, God, I don't know, for some reason that really hit me, because you kind of knew that this guy was a loner ever since Angela went down to his bunker. But at the same time, it's like, he's not a bad guy. He's not a douche. He's not a racist like I thought he was. I thought he was Judd's right-hand man. He's not. He's actually a very genuine guy. And once again, Damon Lindelof is the guy's name?
Yeah.
I got to give props to this dude. He made me really care about a character that I just wrote off, and it was perfect. I absolutely loved the episode. I really did.
Well, I took that subtle thing as, I would say he has one friend, and when she said you should call a friend, I think she thought he was going to call Angela. And so he protected Angela by saying,
right. So let's get into that. So essentially, this woman he meets at one of his squid meetings, which, by the way, the fact that they even have those, bravo! Just keep making this world just so.
That was really great. Also,
the hotline.
What was so subtle about it is that you meet his ex-wife earlier, who is this older blonde lady who's a scientist, and then they send this other girl who's exactly Wade's type. It's like she looks so much like his ex-wife, and she's a scientist, she's a radiologist, as well. It's so funny. The minute I saw her, I was like, oh my God, he's getting catfished. This is not going to go well for him.
The person I was watching it with thought that was his wife for a second there. I'm like, nah, it's not, because she shows up and. I was like, really?
It was just his type. It was just such a subtle thing, that they put in that detail. Where I was like, oh man, that's clever,
So he does end up getting catfish. You're right, and then he follows the 7th Cavalry guys back to their own little location, their own little headquarters, and we find out the 7th Cavalry is fucking around with teleportation machines, and which, by the way, what? Okay. These aren't some random hillbillies, but okay. And we also find out that they set a trap for Wade, a very ingenious trap, but they set it up and he fell hook, line, and sinker. And they didn't kill him, but they wanted him in on their plan, whatever that is.
Right. They wanted to have him be woke or red-pilled or whatever word you want to use. They want to open his eyes, right?
And we find out that Senator Joe Keene is the leader. Now, I originally thought that Senator Joe Keene was a white supremacist, but not in league with the 7th Cavalry, but using the 7th Cavalry for his own means, which is also true, but at the same time, I also thought that he was a part of another underground white supremacist group. That wasn't true, but he is apparently using the 7th Cavalry, and he's their leader.
what's odd is he says all these things, and again, like, you don't know if they're true, and you don't know if Wade knows if they're true,
Right.
because Wade can tell if you're lying. But he says that the 7th Cavalry was essentially that they really did the White Knight and all of that, and then he came in and took them over so they wouldn't do that again. So they're just his pawns, is what he's claiming. That he's not a white supremacist, but he's using white supremacists as his pawns, which, you know, you can't help but think about modern politics today, where, like, you know, some of these leaders, aren't racists themselves, but they're using racists to do their bidding. You know,
Right.
I'm pretty sure they're trying to make that kind of statement. But yeah, so
Well, what about Judd? Because Keen said that Judd was also one of their leaders as well, and apparently Judd is a part of Keen's plan, whatever that plan is. And
Right. But then the timing's all off, because if Judd survives the White Knight, you'd think he'd be part of the 7th Cavalry. But then he says that he's kind of in step with Keen. So, but Keen claims he didn't come in until after the White Knight. So there's a bit of a contradiction in Keen's story and Judd's activity.
Well, he made it sound like Judd, he and Judd both came in and took over leadership after the White Knight.
I mean, that would be really weird. I mean, I don't know, but also, like, Angela's survival of the White Knight is also really suspicious, right? They just let her live, and she ends up being the only survivor other than Judd. You know, and we don't really know why she survived. Like, there's a lot going on that doesn't add up. Because the way Keen says it, you know, you've got these dumb racist grunts, and they pulled the White Knight, and then he wanted to come in there to make sure it didn't happen again. But something's up with the White Knight. There's something up with Angela surviving and Judd surviving and all of that. So something might have, you know, I don't know if Keen is being 100% truthful, and, you know, I'm not sure if what Wade knows is true or not. You know, whether Wade actually has superpowers or not, which is all ambiguous, right?
Well, Wade's abilities here, if they even are abilities, or if he just can just read people's faces, I like that. Even if this was an ability, this is the right type of ability for this show, because Dr. Manhattan is the OP character in the background. We all know that this guy can come down and literally obliterate everybody, snap of his finger. If we're going to have superpowers or powers in general, I want them to be very, very subtle. I want, like, him having the ability, maybe it's not even his ability, maybe like the psychic shockwave really just, I don't know, enhance something in him already. Maybe he can just, I heard you can maybe you can dispel this if it's not true. I heard that once a person lies, their heart beats a little faster.
Yeah, supposedly, though, some people are very good liars.
Right. Maybe
And it
Wade can
doesn't,
just hear that. Maybe.
Right. I mean, there's a reason why polygraphs aren't admissible in court, because, you know, there's such a high false positive and such a high false negative that, you know, there's such a huge error rate. There are sociopaths that can pass lie detector tests. There are people that believe their lies, and then there are really nervous people that you put them in a polygraph and it seems like they're lying on everything because they're so nervous. So it's, you know, it's really, really tough to say. I don't know how he can really practically understand, like, know if somebody's lying or not. But
Well,
but yeah.
So the whole deal between Joe Keane and Wade is essentially, hey, look, I'm gonna show you the truth, and in let me get this the fuck out of here. I'm sorry about that. So the whole thing between Senator Joe Keane and Wade is that I'm gonna show you the truth, the thing they show all of us when we get into government, and in return, you need to get Angela Abar out of the way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have a bunch of these yokels go to her house and kill her whole family. Okay, so I do think you're onto something here, that Wade probably knows that Keane is a bullshitter, because Keane at one point says, and Wade doesn't even ask him a question.
Yeah.
Keane at one point says, Wade, I'm a politician, not a murderer. So right then and there was probably Wade's first signal not to trust this fucking guy. So
I mean, I knew that Wade wouldn't. I mean, he betrays Angela, but he betrays Angela for Angela's own good.
Yes, we'll get to that at the very end. I actually noticed that too. But so the video that Wade has shown is one of Ozymandias 7 years before Redford is elected president. Now, how the hell Ozymandias knows that Redford is going to be elected president, we don't know. Maybe he's just really strategic and he pulled so many strings to get Redford elected. And why Redford in specific? There has to be something that Redford would have done to his advantage to get something to go down. But
so in the original comic, there's some talk, like chatter, about Redford eventually running for president. But so we know that he's like talking about it, but it's like 7 years out. A lot of people like wonder, why would Ozymandias create this video? Like, why would he, let everybody know and undo his work? And I do wonder why he would even let Redford know. I mean, it might be that, after the events of Watchmen, he knew that, and maybe Rorschach's journal came out, and he needed to somehow have a way to contain Rorschach's
No, in
journal.
the video, Ozymandias essentially makes that video right before the event goes down.
Oh. So, yeah, I don't know why he would be making that video. It seems like a really stupid video to create.
Maybe as a contingency plan in case the plan went off without a hitch, but something happened in the future to where the plan would be undone by some random event, and he would want the U.S. government to keep it going, to keep the ruse going. So maybe he knew that in the end, nothing really ever ends, just like Dr. Manhattan said. But Wade finds out the secret, and that shatters his whole world. And earlier in the episode, we see that he and Angela were having a conversation about the pills. They're nostalgia pills, apparently. Memories inside pills. Very cool. I like that.
Right. Yeah. We kind of figured they would be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Lori bugged his cactus. I like the excuse that she gives with the FBI. That's what we do. Reminds me of that scene from Charlie Wilson's War. You ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
And in Charlie Wilson's War, like, something happens similar. Like, he bugs the guy's champagne, and he walks in and out because the guy's busy, and he listens in on it. Watch that movie. You'd actually really like that movie, Charlie Wilson's War with Tom Hanks. I believe it's Tom Hanks. Yeah. But, so he sets Angela up to be essentially taken out. But I went back and watched the episode. Joe Keane basically tells him, Laurie Blake is hot on Angela's trail. All we need you to do is just, make sure that happens a little faster, which Wade does do. Now, originally, I thought that he did that to keep Angela safe, and that's why the 7th Cavalry at the end of the episode came with guns to his house, because he betrayed them somehow, but he actually did exactly what they wanted.
Right. I mean, it could be that they planned on killing him no matter what.
Right.
Which seems to be, they had that triple fake-out ending, where he like throws out the box and you're like, oh, he's done. And then he goes back and he picks up the box and you're like, oh, he's not done. And then they come to kill him and you're like, oh shit. Like triple fake out.
So I thought he betrayed them, but apparently, maybe you're right. Maybe they were going to kill him the entire time. And that's why I'm thinking, because I was thinking, he's dead. Next episode, he's gone. There's no way they can give him such a big episode and have him around for next time. But maybe he called Joe Keane's bluff. He can always call out liars, and he was preparing himself the entire time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Just we didn't see him die, so it may be that Wade has booby traps in his house or something. I don't know.
I would assume so, but I would assume. Does he have booby traps in his house, though? Because it seems like most of what he's preparing for is like a doomsday event, not burglars.
He's preparing for squids, not burglars, right? I don't know. But as I say, if you don't see the person die on screen, there's always a chance they're alive.
Well, what about the Blackfish from Game of Thrones?
And Stannis, right?
And Stannis, right?
Right. No, I understand. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm just saying that there's always a chance.
No, but you're right. And that ends, the whole thing with Wade. By the way, one thing I wanted to point out that I thought was really interesting. Now, I've never seen the movie, but I've heard a lot about it. So when he's having the conversation with that blonde-haired woman at the bar, she talks about her experiences and how she's seen a movie many times over. Now, she's talking...
Schindler's List.
I thought she was talking about Schindler's List because I've never seen Schindler's List, but isn't there a little girl in a red dress in the movie?
Yeah. That's the joke, is that Steven Spielberg, rather than making Schindler's List, makes Pale Horse instead.
I love that.
Pale Horse is a rock band that people like the Top Knots are into, and they were playing in New York when the squid fell.
Right. So I love that. They're changing world events to like kind of fit the whole squid thing, and that is so awesome. Like the meetings, the squid, the interdimensional attack hotline, the movie, like so good, yo. So freaking good that they're doing that. I love it. It's not like to branch off for a minute there. This is what Red Letter Media was complaining about in regards to Star Trek Picard. How this trailer for Star Trek Picard, it doesn't look like the future. It looks like someone just filmed like California outside their window and I guess put spaceships there. Like just little things like this really set up the whole world for you. Like it really does, you know?
Yeah, I mean this episode, you really felt like you were part of the world, you know, and because you're following around this character that lives in it, you know, and so you really felt attached to the world, just because you were attached to Wade and you were attached to all of the little subtle things that are part of the world. Like the fact that they can give an entire background on cloning by going into his ex-wife's like workplace.
So about that, were those people clones or twins? Because I can't tell. Like,
so one thing that Veidt was able to, that was part of his empire, is that he did pet cloning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there's been a lot of talk even today that okay, if you could have your fluffy back exactly the same, you know, would you? And some people are like, no, I don't want fluffy back. And other people are like, no, I would like my exact same dog back again.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talk about, you know, pet cloning would be profitable. And so he seems to have pet cloning technology, but really it was a cover because he was using it for cloning squid. And eventually.
But that's the thing that doesn't make any sense, the whole pet cloning thing. Like even if you cloned your dog still wouldn't have the same quirks as the original would. I mean,
well, not if you used nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
So you take a clone and then you throw in nostalgia and you now have that dog again. Right?
But supposedly they outlawed it because it causes psychosis. It makes people go crazy.
Well, you know, outlawed in people, maybe not in pets. But then there's the question. This gets back to like Lady True and
right.
How, you know, Lady True and the girl that she was raising was being given nostalgia, clearly of memories of the war, but you know, the idea is that Lady True is probably, you know, maybe a clone, and she's been given the memories of the previous Lady True in order to be another Lady True and really hand down her legacy.
Right. Yeah, that's what I assumed. Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, if the technology existed where you could raise your own clone as a son, would you like the way Jango Fett did for Boba Fett? Mm-hmm. You know, there's certainly an appeal to raising somebody different, you know, that can be better, or somebody that's obviously a combination of you and your partner. But I think it would appeal to some people to raise an exact clone of themselves. Like, why even have any genetic variants? I want the same thing again. And so maybe Lady True is doing that. You know, same memories. Same genetics. She's raising clones of herself to continue her legacy. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well,
but they introduce all of that subtly, that this is a world of cloning, by just having, you know, him go to his wife's place of work where she works at a cloning facility, and you can see like how cruel. Well, I mean, we also have clones with the Veidt storyline, clearly, where he's picking up fetuses and stuff like that. But you can see how cruel. Or just disengaged, how she throws the clone puppy and has it incinerated immediately, she's just as unfeeling about those clones as
Mm-hmm.
Veidt is about his clones. Yeah.
Well, this is a concept that we've actually seen before. I think the movie The Island with Ian McGregor, where
Yeah.
they grow clones just in case the person who paid for the clones has like a organ failure or whatever. They can harvest the organs from the clones. And there was a
Yeah.
movie called Moon with the bad guy from Iron Man 2, not Mickey Rourke, the other bad guy. I forgot his name. He was on the movie. In the movie Moon, his clone is on the moon working and doing stuff while the real guy is back at Earth. And they just the disregard for clones, that'd be interesting going into the future in real life.
Yeah, Moon is a great movie.
Mm-hmm. You've seen it, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen Moon, and I've also seen Seventh Day it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where the villain is actually like the sixth clone of himself. But they clone Schwarzenegger, but the old Schwarzenegger stays alive, and so they have two Schwarzeneggers,
Oh.
and comedy ensues, But it's a horrible movie, but the concept is really quite creepy because it's also you can implant memories. So he has the exact same memories, and he's a clone. So is there any difference between him and the other one? What's the movie with Batman versus Wolverine, where they're magicians?
I've never seen that one.
The Prestige.
Oh, The Prestige.
Batman versus where Hugh Jackman doesn't know which one he is. But these are small, weird existential questions. But but the fact that like all of that can just be introduced in a subtle scene where he goes in to talk to his wife and she works at a cloning facility. Like, oh, we're in a world of cloning. Clone squids, clone dogs, clone people. And the technology's there.
This is going to be interesting going forward in the future in our own time, in our own world, because in the future, I'm sure the cloning thing will probably be perfected at some point. But do those clones have a right? Who has rights to those clones? Like, would you have a right to your own clone, or would your parents have a right to your own clone?
Well, I mean, what's horrible about when we show clones in movies is that people assume that like clones aren't separate people. When of course they are. I mean, identical twins are clones. I mean, they have the same DNA.
Mm-hmm.
There's so in the Clone Wars in Star Wars, where they're killing off all these clones, those are people. Like those are actual people with different personalities. And I think in your cartoon sequels, they actually start acting very differently.
Yes,
right?
mm-hmm. They all get individual names and quirks and personalities. But here's the thing, though. The argument could be made in the court of law and in Congress that they aren't really people because they weren't really born through another human being. They were made in a lab. So maybe that's how people could disregard them?
Shudder to think.
Mm-hmm.
But,
By the way, and I know we're going back and forth here. Before we move on, because we are talking about Angela, because she did take those nostalgia pills like all at once. Okay. Apparently, there's something going down that revolves around Angela. That Senator Joe Keene needs her to move aside because he has a plan coming together in a couple of days. And this coincides with the last episode and how that ends with Will and Lady True saying that something will be happening in a couple of days. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah, this is the funny thing because so in the original Watchmen we had one character who was dealing with kind of their end of the world grandmaster plan. I mean, yes, there's the nuclear war that's happening, but then you have Ozymandias' grandmaster plan, and then here we have what seems to be two factions, separate factions, having some sort of master plan coming up, right? Because we have our Lady True, who seems to be in the legacy of Ozymandias, and we have Keene, who seems to be in the legacy of Rorschach. And I don't know which master plan is happening. And, I have no idea what these master plans could be. They both seem to have some master plans going on. And I don't know what they're doing. Like Keene seems to have teleportation devices and clock batteries and knowledge about the squids. So maybe his master plan is letting the world know truth-wise, what everything that Rorschach's journal information, I don't know. But then we have Lady True, who's doing something, and she has memories, right? And also seems to have clones. So Lady True seems to have clones and memories, and Keen has teleportation devices and batteries, and I don't know what's going on. Are they working together? I don't know. I mean, there seems to be a TikTok with both of them, but I don't know what. They seem diametrically opposed, these two groups.
Well, Rorschach was opposed to Adrian's whole thing, and, we have the 7th Cavalry based on Rorschach's group, and now we have Lady True, and she kind of idolizes Ozymandias. So, yeah, you're right. It kind of, it does seem like poetry. It rhymes with these guys, their legacy kind of, forming into this and just going against each other. What could be Senator Joe Keen's plan? Now, it could be to just release the truth out there. But at the same time, like, I was wondering, why not release it on the internet? But I don't think the internet appears to be a thing here because,
No, there's no internet.
Yeah.
But Rorschach's journal seems to have gotten out. That's why I'm a little surprised that that Wade Looking Glass was so bowled over. Like, didn't Rorschach's journal come out? Shouldn't everyone kind of know about Rorschach's journal as this conspiracy theory?
But the video didn't come out. The video that Ozymandias made for Redford isn't out there. And if you notice in that video, there's like a giant eye right behind him. And we didn't see the full video, but I'm assuming whatever is on it is essentially Ozymandias explaining the whole squid attack. The purpose of it was for this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So maybe he's trying to open a portal, maybe in Tulsa, maybe all over the country, to blow the whole lid on the damn thing. But at the same time, why though? Like, why? Senator Joe Keen doesn't seem like someone who would be into the whole Rorschach mentality, where it's like, the truth. So
you're right, because I mean, so the original Watchmen comic, in many ways, is a psychological breakdown of Rorschach and people like Rorschach and what they think. Like, how does one become a crazy libertarian who hates all people and wants to, like, essentially be an anarchist and bring everything down? And, he gets into that, and it's like, well, people that have been abused by society and have no investment in society don't care about society. But Keen, he has prospered in society. He seems to be very successful. So why would he be interested in tearing everything down? This is an interesting fact about global stability, and various countries, have some countries are more stable than other countries. They're having riots and people demanding that the government be torn down, and protests and things like that. And there's a lot of things that are correlated with stability. Some income distribution is a big thing. Like, if people have similar income levels or wealth levels, there tends to be more stability. But the other huge one, this is really, really big, is the presence of a social security system. If a country has a social security system, it tends to be much more stable than countries that don't have social security systems. And there's a big reason for that. That is if you're getting retirement money later on, you are invested in the government. Like, if you tear down that government, you're not getting your social security. So in a sense, like, if you have investment in the system, you don't want to see the system burn, So like, these revolutionaries out there today who are like, let's tear the whole system down. I mean, for someone like me, it's like, well, I've got a bank account, investments, and like a job. Like, things are going pretty well for me. I mean, the system like works for me, and so I'm not so interested in tearing down the system. Rorschach, nothing works well for Rorschach. He's completely unhappy. Nothing goes his way. He has no one in his life. Of course he wants to tear down society, because society has never given anything to him. There's no benefit for him in society existing. So Rorschach, at the end, when everyone says, oh, no, you can't tell the truth, Rorschach. Rorschach doesn't care. He is looking to tear down society because he was abused by it. So you're right. Keene doesn't seem like he would be a Rorschach type. Keene is rich, and he's a politician, and he's benefited from society. He's invested in society. Why would he want society to fall? I have no idea. I mean, I thought Keene is looking to win the presidency, that he wants some sort of incident that makes him look like a hero. I mean, that's my guess on him.
So, and he even says at one point, he says it to Wade, like, I was hoping for, like, judiciary or, so on and so forth, that which is more sexy.
Well, so appropriations is a committee that assigns various money to various projects. And so as somebody in Washington that works for the government, appropriations is kind of always known as like the secret super sexy committee that has all of the power because they have all of the money. And so what's kind of being read under the lines here is he didn't think appropriations was going to be interesting, but some money was getting appropriated to some government program that's so super secret that it's not even part of the Defense Department or the CIA or whatever, that it's outside of even that only the Appropriations Committee, the people in charge of the money bags, would know about it. That's what they were saying by saying, oh, I was put on the Appropriations Committee and I got to watch this video. He's essentially saying that it's so secret that it's outside of even the intelligence community, that only on the Appropriations Committee, where there was some sort of line item of money that needed to be allocated to something, would he be in the know.
Well, we've been putting this off the entire time. Let's get to it. It's the shortest segment of the entire episode, and it's essentially you were right, but you were also wrong at the same time, because last episode you were like, oh, he is on the moon. Yes, right. But not Earth's moon.
Not Earth's moon.
I needed to go back and look this up. Apparently he's on one of Jupiter's moons.
It looked like Jupiter to me. I think some people think it's Mars because everything's so Mars focused, but it looked like Jupiter's swirling atmosphere to me.
No, yes, that is correct. He was. I looked it up. He is on Jupiter. And initially, in the last episode, I thought, in preparation to fight the Game Warden and to like brush up on his skills, because in episode, I think it was episode 2 or 3, ends with him putting on the Ozymandias costume. I thought he killed the Phillips and Crookshankses to try to hone up on his skills, but no, that's not why. He killed the Phillips and Crookshankses because he needed to send them through the projector,
the facade,
the force, not force field, but like whatever you want to call that, and they needed to be on the surface so that when he went himself this episode, he could create an actual sign with their dead bodies, which I thought
he wasn't actually losing his mind and becoming frustrated. He needed those bodies.
Yes.
To spell out, save me.
Well, save me D. We don't see the rest of it because it said save me D. I had to go back and look. We don't know who D is. D could be Dr. Manhattan, though I don't think he has enough bodies to spell out Dr. Manhattan. D could also be the first name of Lady True.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know her first name?
We do not. I believe. Let me look it up real quick in case I might have missed it. Let me look it up real quick because I don't think we do. Let me look it up. Nope. We do not. We just know her name is Lady True, the owner of True Industries, a corporation that bought out Vite Enterprises on the news of his death. That's all we know about her. So, yeah, we don't know what her first name is. So her first name could start with a D. And apparently there is a satellite that is orbiting Jupiter that can see this. And it catches him.
That's a funny thing because I was thinking about... Because if he were on Mars, I'd be like, okay, well, the travel distance between Mars and Earth, depending on rotations, it might be a couple of years. Going out to Jupiter, that's pretty. That
Yes.
takes a long time.
And this is what I was talking about before. This is why I love his fucking story so much. You were right, but you were wrong. And he is on the moon. And okay, so we finally know why he's on the moon. It's a prison. Okay, fine. It answers that one mystery. Where is he? Okay. But it opens up another mystery. Why is he on the moon of Jupiter? What is he doing there?
How did he? Because they must use teleporters to get out there, right?
A teleporter that goes that far? They were having problems getting the teleporter just to teleport like in certain areas of that fucking church. They have a teleporter that powerful with such accuracy that can teleport him to freaking one of the moons of Jupiter? Come on.
I mean, it has to be. I mean, if it weren't for the satellite, I'd be like, oh, Dr. Manhattan put him there. But the satellite was there, and Dr. Manhattan doesn't have any need for a satellite. Also, like, Veidt also looked to the sky and saw a red dot. I wonder if that was supposed to be Mars in the distance or something. But yeah, so we don't know if Dr. Manhattan is looking from Mars or if the satellite is looking and he's hoping someone on Earth with a teleporter can help him. But man,
well, he writes the SOS message with the bodies, and then he gets pulled back by the game warden, who we don't get to see his face, but I swear that's a Mr. Phillips.
It looks like a Mr. Phillips to me.
Yeah, I swear it's a Mr. Phillips who is not a part of the whole thing. He has his own mission to keep Adrian there, and Adrian keeps kind of mocking him, like, your God has abandoned you, and so on and so forth. And the funny thing is, the Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks, they're Adrian's, I don't want to say slaves, but they're Adrian's, like, they're people, but when the game warden is threatening him, they don't do anything. They just sit back and watch. They don't really intervene, yeah. So it's interesting. I'm wondering if, like, in their genetic code, are they allowed to do certain things that, or are they allowed to do certain things and are they not allowed to do other things? Like, go up against the order of things within the whole bubble.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Manhattan is supposed to be off trying to create life.
Is that what he says at the end of the comics? Because I know he says at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but yeah, he's supposed to do that at the end of the comics. But so this might be his failed attempt at it, or it might be that Ozymandias is like, haha, I'm going to beat Dr. Manhattan to it or something, because he was doing it with cloning or whatever. So who knows? It's so many mysteries because it could be anybody. That could be Veidt technology because Veidt was into cloning, or it could be true technology, or it could be Dr. Manhattan, or it could be something else. It could be the government. I have no idea. We have no idea.
So someone said this to me on Patreon. I need to. They made a very good point. I needed to just highlight it real quick because we discussed this. How Will tells Angela, "Maybe I'm Dr. Manhattan," and Angela's boyfriend, he said, look, Dr. Manhattan can't look like a person. James Booz, he says, I think one of the things you missed about Dr. Manhattan looking human isn't about him actually looking like a human, but acting like one again. That was the whole break between Spectre and Manhattan. He became beyond human, something that couldn't connect with humanity anymore. The ongoing joke would be that Dr. Manhattan is so beyond humanity that he cannot reasonably disguise himself due to his behavior.
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense. I thought he just couldn't I just thought he couldn't disguise himself as an actual physically like a human. But some people have been theorizing that Angela's boyfriend is Dr. Manhattan.
Oh, her husband?
Yeah, because for some reason when I go on Wikipedia.org, Watchmen, blah, 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 we see the main characters, Angela, played by Regina King, Jean Smart, who plays Laurie Blake, Jeremy Irons, Ozymandias, and then, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Yahya Abdul Mateen the second. He, for some reason, is a part of the main group. Like, Judd, I understand. Judd is a huge part of the whole thing. Laurie and Angela, of course. But why is Angela's boyfriend there?
Huh. I mean,
his name is Calvin, by the way. But why is he there? And I'm seeing a lot of parallels between Angela, Sister Knight, and Silk Spectre, Laurie Blake. I'm seeing a lot of parallels here. How Laurie Blake had a relationship with Manhattan and blah blah blah. If he were to come back and disguise himself as a human, because Angela seems to be at the very center of all of this. For some reason, she is.
Manhattan's a bit of a contradictory character because on the one hand, he acts like he's so beyond humanity, but then on the other hand, he like dumps his wife because she started getting old for a younger woman. And you're like, well, that's just like typical douchey male behavior. Mm-hmm. That's very human. So maybe he's done it again. He's like, I need a new hot thing. So he's moved on to Regina King. I don't know.
Maybe that's what it is because, like, for some reason, Will said, like, maybe I'm Dr. Manhattan. I mean, that's ridiculous. Dr. Manhattan can't pose as a person. Why though? Well, why? There's a lot of parallels between Laurie and.
I like how you know how you were talking about the theory of the grandfather being Hooded Justice, and then this episode, Red Scare walks by and he's like, "No, man, Dr. Manhattan is Hooded Justice." And the guy's like, "How is that possible? He wasn't born yet." And he's like, "He can time travel."
And what's up with Wade? Man. So was Wade watching? That's so weird. Was Wade watching a porno? Like, what the fuck was up with Hooded Justice having gay sex? Was that like actual being shown on actual television, or was he just watching a porno?
It's really weird. So he wasn't watching a porno. He was watching that regular TV program that everyone watches. It was a little graphic.
It's a little graphic. You're not kidding. That's so random to make Hooded Justice a gay man, which, by the way, I have no issue with. It's just
so this
random.
gets in. So this is a funny thing, and this is very Alan Moore. So one of the reasons Alan Moore had Dr. Manhattan be naked is he wanted to focus on how uptight British and American society are with sex. So Alan Moore fundamentally believes that that British and American society should be more like Scandinavian society, where they're a little looser and more relaxed about sex, because if you actually look at those countries, they have a much lower rate of sexual assault, sexual abuse of children, and things like this. And yet they're so much looser when it comes to ideas of sex. They're much more open about nudity. They're much more open about the need for sex to be in a healthy, functioning relationship. They don't hide it like like puritanical American and British society. And so one of the big things, and you see this all the time, like if you click on any Watchmen video or any Watchmen article, and there'll be some reference to Dr. Manhattan's dong. Like, it's a constant joke. Mm-hmm. But everybody goes straight to it because Dr. Manhattan's walking around naked. It's like, and everyone's like, why doesn't Dr. Manhattan put on pants? Why should he put on pants? Like, there's no reason for Dr. Manhattan to put on pants. Like, we only wear pants in our society because we have these, screwed up ideas about sex and our organs being shameful, and that we need to cover them up. And Dr. Manhattan is super intelligent, so he's beyond that. He's beyond like the ridiculous social need to do this. There is no reason why human beings need to cover up their genitalia, except for like strange backward like religious reasons. And so, of course, like an enlightened being like Dr. Manhattan wouldn't wear pants. But the fact that like we can't, even as a society, like write a single article or have a single video that talks about Dr. Manhattan without mentioning his dick just shows like how damaged we are as a society. And so I do think, getting back to the whole thing about Hooded Justice and everything, it's funny that we as a society are so against showing two people have sex on screen. That's the worst thing in the world. That'll scar children. But people getting blown up, blood, guts, violence, that's all fine. But two people having sex, like, which is a wonderful, great thing of two people like, connecting and enjoying each other's company. That's the worst thing in the world to have on TV. But violence, death, that's fine. And so I think that was a little statement from Lindelof, like in the same aspect of Alan Moore, that of how screwed up we are. That we can have violence, but we can't have sex. And when we do have sex, like think about like what's the most shocking thing in season 8 of Game of Thrones was Arya having sex. And I'm just like, oh god.
Because she was so young, and we kind of grew up with her with Maisie Williams, and
I mean, the character is 18, and Maisie Williams was like 24. Like this full grown woman, okay, full grown woman having sex, and everyone's like, oh my god, it was so traumatic. I'm sorry. She chopped up people and baked them into a pie and fed sons to a father. Like, and that's much, much worse. like.
Well, we didn't see her like chopping those guys up, and all we saw was like
we didn't
a
see
finger.
her. We didn't see her have sex. We barely saw some side boob. Alan Moore actually wrote a comic book called The Miracle Man, and I think in Miracle Man there is what people remember from it is this 2-page spread where Miracle Man's love interest gives birth to a son or his daughter. He has a daughter. And it's a very accurate birth. I mean, they show the vagina, they show the pubic hair, they show the crowning.
Oh.
They show the baby come out, and it's all shriveled and distorted the way newborns are, and slimy, and he holds it up, and the guy is just joyous because his daughter has been born, and yet it's an ugly newborn because newborns are ugly. And what everyone remembers how they say graphic that is. And he's like, and when in interviews, Alan Moore's like, you're so fucked up. Like, you're all so fucked up. That like the most beautiful fucking thing in the world, like somebody being born, and how happy and wonderful that is. And that's graphic, and that's the thing you're going to remember. And yet, all this like death and destruction and violence, like everybody just doesn't even blink to that. Who cares about Dr. Manhattan's fucking dog? Okay, who fucking cares?
This whole rant just led up to like, who cares about Dr. Manhattan's penis? Who cares? We went from gay sex to this. Okay,
but also, who cares about the gay sex? 2 guys were having gay sex.
That just came out of because I was.
But this is the whole thing. It's like Alan Moore was totally into pointing out this double standard about sex and violence.
No, I know. It's just I was just pointing out how like he's just sitting there casually watching gay sex, and I'm wondering, is this on national television? Holy fuck!
Right, I think it is.
Holy fuck!
I think it is. But there was a rating system. But then the kids remember there was a rating system earlier.
Oh, that's right.
Violence, and then the kids kept watching. So there was a rating system warning them.
Oh god. Well, Preston, let's wrap this up. What would you give this episode on scale from 1 to 10? I would give it a 9. I love it.
9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. It was a
great episode. Fantastic.
Great episode. Great show. The show so far has just been fucking fantastic.
I'm really getting annoyed. Now I'm getting annoyed because remember that video I sent you that pissed you off about the guy? Like, Watchmen's too political. Shut the fuck up, you fucking idiot.
Also, like, as you've gone into it and how, like, nuanced the politics is, like, it's so much, it's so much more balanced in its political views than the original Watchmen. I'm not saying I'd say it's on the same level of, like, political nuance. I mean, Alan Moore is saying a lot of different things, and so is Lindelof, but, Lindelof is putting in a lot of swipes at the left. I mean, the fact is cigarettes are banned, for example, and things like that.
Well, I can tell off the bat I'm probably not gonna like the next episode because when it comes to like flashback stuff like that, I really don't like it. It looks more artsy than really plot moving.
Yeah, I do. I hate dream sequence episodes. I hate reset button episodes. So unless there's going to be some really important information that Angela's going to get that changes everything, I don't know if finding out about her grandfather's like war and everything is really going to do much, but we'll see. We'll see.
It looks more artsy than anything, and
there hasn't been a bad episode yet, some episodes are stronger than others, but there hasn't been a bad episode yet.
Episode 2
so
was just
we'll see how it
okay,
goes.
but it wasn't bad by any
Yeah.
stretch. So.
No. Yeah.
All right, well, Preston, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Watchmen Podcast. Guys, thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with some more Watchmen. Have a good one.